In Parshas Vaeira, Perik, where is this now? Page 318. Thank you. Okay. So there's an interesting concept here. Start off. Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe vayomer lo ani Hashem. Now everybody knows that the name Elokim is the Midas Hadin, strict judgment, and what do you call it? And the Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei is the name of mercy. So right off the bat we have trouble. Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe. Elokim speaks to Moshe. Vayomer lo ani Hashem. And he says, I am Hashem. So Rashi says that Hashem spoke very harshly to Moshe Rabbeinu because at the end of last week's parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu complained to Hashem. So let's just get a little bit of a review. What happened last time was that Moshe Rabbeinu is sent by Hashem. He goes to Paro, and Paro just tightens things up on the Jewish people. Paro goes and he makes them bring, he won't give them straw anymore, and they have to produce the same amount of bricks that they produced in the past, or tiles, bricks, whatever you want to call it, and he makes things more difficult after Moshe has arrived. And Moshe Rabbeinu is criticized by a couple of Jews, Dasan and Aviram. They're always there to lend a helping hand to make trouble. And they're criticized Moshe Rabbeinu, and they're upset with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Hashem, and he says, what did you send me for? So, that's considered a little bit of an affront to Hashem. And Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Vaydaber Elokim, that's how we pick it up over here. Hashem, Elokim el Moshe v'emer lo ani Hashem. So it starts off with a very hard, very harsh, what do you call it? So I want to tell you an interesting incident that took place. Have you ever heard of the Slobodka Yeshiva? Heard of the Slobodka Yeshiva, the famous Slobodka Yeshiva in Europe, which today is eventually evolved into the Chevron Yeshiva here in Israel. The Slobodka Yeshiva transplanted themselves, when they came from Europe, they transplanted themselves into Chevron, and then they had the massacre in 1929, and they moved from Chevron to, originally they were in Geula, in the Geula neighborhood. Now they're in the Givat Mordechai neighborhood. It's one of the biggest yeshivas in Israel, the Chevron Yeshiva. Okay, so there was a man named Rabbi Nosson Tzvi Finkel, who was the Alter of Slobodka. He was known as the Elder of Slobodka. He was the head of the yeshiva in Slobodka. So we're talking about probably in about 1915, in the Slobodka Yeshiva, there was a boy who got engaged. And they made it, in those days, they made a shidduch. It was considered a very good shidduch. He was the daughter of a prominent Rav who was also very well-to-do. So this guy, he had it made. He had a support so he could study Torah, and then when his father-in-law would die, he would take over the position. So it was considered a very good shidduch. The girl was probably a good girl, too. It was considered a very good shidduch. That was a joke, by the way. That was a joke. It was considered. So Reuven gets engaged to this girl, and Shimon was in the yeshiva, and Shimon was insanely jealous because of the Reuven's shidduch. He was insanely jealous. People are jealous. People become jealous. It's not. You can't reason with emotion sometimes. So Shimon went to the future father-in-law, and he told him, he made up a terrible story about Reuven, about something that he did, and he told the future father-in-law, and the future father immediately dissolved the shidduch. After that, World War I broke out. And World War I broke out, the yeshiva was disbanded. They were running around all over the place. They just find shelter. World War I. At the end of the war, about 4 or 5 years later, the Slobodka Yeshiva, they regrouped. And so this Reuven came back to the yeshiva, and it's the first time that he had seen the Alter of Slobodka, or Nosson Tzvi Finkel. It was the first time he'd seen him in about 5 years. He came into the yeshiva, started schmoozing with him, and Nosson Tzvi Finkel then pulls out a paper, and he says, Reuven, you remember a few years ago you had the shidduch and it was broken off? Shimon wrote me a letter, and he asked me to intervene on his behalf to beg forgiveness from you because he knows that he hurt you very much. So Reuven says to him, forget about it. I forgive him. A lot's gone down since then. Don't worry about it. So the Alter says, no. He says, I know it hurt then, and I know it still hurts now. And I want to know if you could genuinely forgive him. So Reuven closes his eyes for 10 minutes, opens his eyes. 10 minutes later, he says, I searched every chamber of my heart. I have no grudge against him whatsoever. I forgive him with a full heart. So the Alter looked at him and he said, I see on your face you're telling me the truth. And the Gemara says, Kol ha'mavir al midosov, ma'avirin lo al kol psha'av. One who is willing to overlook the wrongs perpetrated against him, Hashem overlooks all of his wrongs. It means if you were willing to overlook, then Hashem will overlook. And he said, the Gemara says Hashem overlooks, that means Hashem wipes the slate clean. If you forgive, by the way, which is why it's a good idea, gentlemen, to forgive people, because Hashem works with us the way we work. And if you don't make an issue out of something, just overlook it. You don't have to say anything, just get past it. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes will get past our stuff too, which is worth, it's a good trade. It's a good trade. So he says, so the altar said to him, I see that you're genuinely, that means that you're willing to overlook, that means Hashem has wiped your slate clean. And if Hashem has wiped your slate clean, and Hashem wiped your slate clean, that means right now you are a perfect tzaddik. You're a tzaddik gomer, you have no Vaeiras. Because your slate is wiped clean. I want you to give me a bracha. So this is the Alter Slobodka, who's one of the Torah leaders in pre-war Europe, saying to this young yeshiva guy, I want you to give me a bracha. So the guy says, no, Rebbe, it's not for me. He says, I want you to give me, the Alter Slobodka is not a humorous person. He says, I said, I want you to give me a bracha. So he says, okay, Hashem should fulfill all your, no. Take both your hands, put them on my head and give me a bracha. And he had no choice but to take his hands and put them on the head of the altar of Slobodka and give him a bracha. Documented incident. Okay, why am I bringing this up? Torah brings up over here, Vayomer daber Elokim el Moshe Vayomer lo ani Hashem. What caused, in other words, there's something switched, page 318, something switched over here between the name Elokim and the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei Hashem. He went from the Midah of Din, strict judgment, to the Midah of mercy, of Rachamim. Now something switched over here. What switched? The answer is, Vaydaber el Moshe. What was Moshe's trait? What was the trait he's most known for? Humility. Humility. One of the defining features of humility is you're willing to overlook. One of the why to understand that, why don't we overlook? If somebody wrongs me. Somebody cuts me in line. You cut me in line? Give me your address, man. I'm coming for you. Why? Not because why? Because they cut you in line. So what? So you'll get your piece of schnitzel exactly 3 seconds later. Maybe 5. I'm not going to deal with that. It's not the end of the world. Why is it? It's not because he cut me in line. I'm not worried about the schnitzel. What am I worried about? You cut me. And me. There's a lot of me in there. Me. There's a me. It's the first word. From one of the first words kids learn. Me. One of the first words. One of the first words big kids learn. Me. What's a humble person? A humble person has very little me in him. Very little me. He's not thinking about himself. He doesn't consider himself that important. If you don't consider yourself that important, you're willing to overlook. To the degree you're less important in your own eyes, is the degree that I could overlook. If I consider myself very important, well, yeah, you cut me off, and therefore you can't. So what's Moshe Rabbeinu's trait? That means that Moshe Rabbeinu himself is somebody who's willing to overlook. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you have earned the right for me to overlook as well. You understand? You overlook because you're Moshe Rabbeinu, you who are humble, and therefore really the Midah of Din has been unleashed. The letter of law has been unleashed on you. But you know what? Because you are a person who overlooks, therefore I'll go to the Midah of Rachamim. I'll switch into the Rachamim mode, into the trait of mercy. So it's worth it. It's a worthwhile trade. It's a worthwhile trade. I remember my father told me when I was about, I think I was about 9 years old or 10 years old, my father said to me, try not to use the word I so much when you talk. So I remember thinking to myself, I got to leave the word I out of when I talk. Yeah, but how am I going to talk about myself if I leave out the word I? I wasn't the sharpest knife in the kitchen. I didn't, kind of went slide right past, So there's a little bit too much I. That's the first trait of a Mavir al Midosov, number one. Number two, by the way, I think this is a good one. I love this. This is a good one. This lady bakes about, sometimes they're making a sheva brachas. This lady's making a sheva brachas. So she bakes about 80 little rolls. And she goes to her, there's no room in her freezer. So she knocks on her next door neighbor. She says, Rachel, I made these 80 rolls for the Sheva brachas. Could I put them in your freezer? So she says, sure, Chana. So Chana puts 80 rolls in Rachel's freezer. Okay. And then the day that she's at the 80 rolls, the night before the Sheva brachas, Chana comes over to Rachel's house, and she says to her, can I just get the rolls? I want to start defrosting them for the Sheva brachas tomorrow. So Rachel says, sure. She goes over to the freezer. She opens up the freezer. There are 4 rolls in the freezer. So she walks over. She'll say, first thing you know, she's frozen. She's like, what? Immediately she's ready. She goes over to her husband sitting and learning, and next week she goes, Herschel, did you eat those rolls? He goes, yeah, they were real good. Me and the boys have been eating them all week. And she goes, Herschel, women have this ability to yell at you without making a sound, right? It defines natural law. I go, what is the last time? Like that. And she's already crying. And she goes to the front door, and she says to her, Chana, I'm sorry my husband and boys ate all the rolls. She goes, really? I hope they enjoyed them. She goes, aren't you upset? She goes, no, why should I be upset? I baked them that somebody should enjoy them. What's the problem? So she said, they enjoyed them. I'll bake some more. I'll buy some more. What's the big deal? I once told this story. I was talking to a group of older ladies. Some lady in the back couldn't restrain herself. She goes, what a tzaddikas. She couldn't restrain herself. Now, I want to tell you something. You consider that, it's a beautiful thing, right? Wow, what a gracious lady, right? You know who the real tzaddikas could potentially be here? You know how women are, she goes, what, you're not upset? No, I'm not upset. She goes, oh, okay, well, thank you so much. She closes it, says, bye, and she turns around like this, heading down there for her husband. Who could be the tzaddik? If that Rachel doesn't go back to her husband, you nitwit, what were you thinking? And she doesn't say a thing. That's somebody who's maver on their midos. That's somebody who's willing to overlook. That's somebody who could be a tzaddik. That's the hardest thing in life. And often it's the hardest thing because nobody knows you're overlooking. Some guy keeps somebody takes your parking space, and you don't say anything to him. The hardest thing about it is because nobody knows that. The only one who knows is Hashem. That's why that's why it wipes the slate clean, because it's so difficult. It's one of the most difficult things in the world. Somebody did something in the house the other day, and I didn't say anything. I was going to say something. I said, no, I'm not going to say anything. Just to work on myself. I'm not going to say anything. I didn't say anything. And it took a while, because I'm like, it's churning inside. But after a while, when you get past it, you actually feel good. Wow, I actually didn't say anything. Cost me $900, but I'm just kidding. I would have said something then. You would have heard it. But sometimes it's a little thing it's churning inside, and nobody will ever know. You know how the story ends, don't you? This woman becomes a tzaddikas. She doesn't say anything to him. She doesn't say anything to him. Then at about 2 a.m, she sits up in bed. What were you thinking? I want to tell you, for those 6 hours that she didn't say anything, she's also a tzaddikas. Right? Because the hardest thing in the world. That's what it's called a Vaeira. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu switches from Elohim to Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu, you're humble, and you're a person who overlooks. And gentlemen, you should know that there's a very important thing in marriage, in raising a family. If you're going to go off every 5 minutes when the guys in the family do something wrong, then you're just going to have, your house is going to just be a volcano. You just can't live like that. Somebody left the light on, and somebody used the soap, and somebody left the soap. Often it happens when you're raising teenagers that somebody leaves the soap in a cup overnight. So the soap is on this sudden weight loss plan overnight, and now it's half the size. Or somebody doesn't cap the shampoo when you take a shower, and then you walk and you reach for it, boom, it falls, half the shampoo is gone. Every time this happens, and you're going to start going off on every single time somebody wastes money or breaks something. You're going to be a basket case. You're going to be a basket case. So you got 2 choices. One is to live alone. Right? The other is to try, just listen, that's life. That's like you did it to your parents, now you're getting it back. Whatever you're getting, whatever's happening to you, don't worry. We got it coming. But at the end of the day, if you're going to go off on every little thing, you're going to be a very unhappy person. You just got to learn, take it. Just take the hit. That's all. Okay. That's number 1. Then, so Moshe Rabbeinu now comes to the Jewish people. Skip down. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to redeem the Jewish people. I'm going to take them out. And then skip down to the next page. Vaidaber, top line. Now watch this. Vaidaber Moshe Kenel B'nai Yisrael Moshe says this. He delivers the message to the Jewish people that Hashem is going to redeem them. And there are 4 terms, by the way, that the Torah uses over here. Ve'otzeitzi, it says ve'otzeitzi, ve'itzalti, ve'lakachti, ve'galti. That's why we drink 4 cups of wine on Pesach. Each one of the 4 cups corresponds to one of these terms that Hashem uses in Pasuk Zion, that he says, I'm going to take the Jewish people out, ve'otzeitzi, ve'itzalti. And then Moshe Rabbeinu reports it to the Jewish people. Now watch this. Vaydaber Moshe Kedah b'nei Yisrael. Moshe speaks to the Jewish people. V'lo shamu el Moshe mikotzer ruach u'me'avoda kosha. They did not listen to Moshe. What does it mean they didn't listen to Moshe when he tells them that they're going to be redeemed? In this context, not listening means it didn't comfort them. Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to comfort the Jewish people. Don't worry, you're about to be redeemed. It doesn't comfort them. Why not? They're not comforted. Now this is strange. Because last week's parsha we learned that when Moshe Rabbeinu showed up, it says that the Jewish people believed him, that he's the Redeemer. It says openly in the pasuk the Jewish people believed him. And all of a sudden now, when Moshe Rabbeinu comes, now it says they didn't listen to him. Now the Jewish people didn't listen. They're not comforted by Moshe Rabbeinu. What changed? What changed? So the plain meaning is, well, the first time Moshe Rabbeinu came along, he said, hey, listen, I'm the Redeemer. Pakod pakadati. I'm the Redeemer of the Jewish people. The Jewish people believed him. Well, if you're the Redeemer, what's supposed to happen? Things should be getting better. But they didn't get better. They got worse. So now Moshe Rabbeinu comes back again after things have gotten worse, and the Jewish people are in a very distressful situation. Moshe Rabbeinu now, after things have gotten worse, Moshe Rabbeinu comes back and says, oh, by the way, Hashem's going to take you out. Well, that's great, guys, right? Right? No, nobody wants to hear. More than that. If you take a look in the pasuk, look at the grammar, the structure in the pasuk, you see how subtle it is. Vaydaber Moshe Keno b'nei Yisrael, top line again, page 320. Moshe spoke to the thus to the b'nei Yisrael. V'lo shamu el Moshe. Now this is strange that it says, and they didn't listen to Moshe. What could it have said? What could it have said, Moshe?
They didn't listen.
They didn't listen to? No, they didn't listen to him. Why does he have to repeat his name? Even something subtle like this in Torah is significant. Again, look at the pasuk. Vaydaber Moshe Keno b'nei Yisrael. Moshe spoke this way, thusly, thus. There, well, we get to use the word thus now. Moshe spoke so to the b'nei Yisrael. V'lo shamu el Moshe. They didn't listen to Moshe. Well, obviously it's Moshe. Moshe's talking. I would have written v'lo shamu el. They didn't listen to him. Mikotzer ruach me'avoda kosha, because of shortness of breath and hard. They didn't listen to Moshe. So the Mefarshim say, first the Mefarshim say they didn't listen because it was Moshe. Specifically because it was Moshe. What does that mean? And this you've all experienced, by the way. You've all experienced this at some point or other. I guarantee you, in some context, you'll know that you will have experienced this. Imagine a friend of yours gets a brand new car. Right? Guy comes driving in with a Jaguar. And you say to him, wow, you're still on public transportation. This guy's driving, and you're drooling. And he goes, it's not that great. How do you feel at that moment? How do you feel when he says, it's not that great? How do you feel? Oh, be quiet. You liar. You're telling me it's not that great. Yeah. Oh, right.
Your excitement goes down?
Yeah, what's that?
Your excitement goes down a bit?
My excitement doesn't go down. He's the guy with the Jaguar, my excitement doesn't go down. I don't like hearing that. Tell me that you like it. Tell me you're enjoying it. Don't say, it really isn't that great. Oh, please. It's easy for you to say. Right? I mean, use a better example. A guy's hurting for money, and there's a rich guy. And the rich guy says to you, listen, things will be okay. Don't worry, buddy. Things are going to work out. Oh, yeah? Yeah, things are going to work out, huh? No. Or he says to you, having money isn't all it's cracked up to be. I see. So you want to give me some? No. Oh, so you are cracked up, right? Yeah. Don't give me the. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Jews. Don't worry, guys. It's going to be okay. And Jewish people, look who's talking over here. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Levi. Moshe Rabbeinu was away. He was never put to high. He was never getting whipped for building bricks. It's easy for you to talk. They can't accept it because it's Moshe Rabbeinu saying it. If somebody else, some guy who's getting whipped and he turns to you and he says, listen, we're going to get out of this one day. Yeah, you think so? Yeah, we'll make it. Somebody else comes over and he says, it'll be okay. Somebody visits you in prison. I don't know if any of you have ever been in prison. But back when I was doing that 7-year term, and when people would come and visit me, oh, you didn't know, did you? Yeah, well, I didn't know. I didn't know it was somebody's car. I thought it was Hefker. So if you're in prison and somebody comes to you and they visit, they say, "Don't worry, buddy. It's you'll be out of here soon." Right? Oh, right. Yeah, you want to switch places? We'll see how soon. It's hard for you to hear it. It's hard for you to hear it. Nobody wants to. That's why it's a very difficult thing. You should know when people. Nobody should have to go. Or somebody goes. I know I've done the people on vacation. How was your vacation? Nah, it's okay. It's not. Oh, it was okay. It was just okay. Oh, you went to Switzerland and stayed at 5-star hotel. But it was just okay. Oh, I see. Oh, you want to stay home with? You want to stay home instead? No. No. So sometimes you should know that's why. No. Skip that. Okay, that's why. Okay, now starts the we're gonna see something very strange that happens. First of all, take a look at Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, Bo daber el Paro melech Mitzrayim. Fourth line. Vishalach es b'nei Yisrael me'aretzo. I want you to go to Paro, and he's going to send away the Jewish people. Vayidaber Moshe lifnei Hashem lemor. Moshe says to Hashem, "You're sending me to Paro. Hey b'nei Yisrael lo shomu elai. The Jewish people haven't listened to me. Ve'ech yishme'eni Paro. How's Paro going to listen? Vani aral svasayim. How does the article translate? I have sealed lips. That's a very that's a literal translation. Also, Moshe had a speech impediment. What was his speech impediment? How did he get it? When he was the baby reaching for the crown, and they put him to the test with the coals and the diamonds. Remember, he picked up the coal and he touched his face. So Moshe Rabbeinu had trouble speaking. By the way, that's what they say. The code word to release the Jewish people was when a redeemer comes along and says the words pakod pakadati. He will be the Redeemer. That's a sign that he's the Redeemer. So everybody asks, well, yeah, now anybody can come along. It's not that sophisticated. Just come in and say, Pakod Pakadati, and how do they know that you're the real Redeemer? So there are different answers. One of the answers is that this was a passed along from word to mouth among the Jewish people, and Moshe Rabbeinu ran away when he was a teenager. He didn't come back till he's 80 years old. He was in Midian. He ran away because of the executioner, that he killed the Egyptian. So Moshe wasn't around to actually hear the transmission of this code word. So how did Moshe Rabbeinu ever know Pakod Pakadati? That's a sign that he's the one. And an 80-year-old man comes in and says Pakod Pakadati, which he had never had a chance to hear before. So that's a sign that he's the one. That's one of the explanations. The other explanation is if a guy's got a speech impediment, he can't say it. And a guy walks in, he goes Pakod Pakadati fluently. So it's a miraculous indication. Because you can't even pronounce it. But now he comes in and he says Pakod Pakadati. By the way, Arabs do not have a P in their language. That's how I could tell if the cab driver is an Arab or not, because he'll start talking to me in Hebrew, and he wants to say one time in Hebrew it's pam kara. He'll say ba'am. They use a bays instead of a pay. They don't have a P pronunciation in their what do you call it? Their language. You didn't know that? Why? I don't know. Why I don't know. Different languages have certain people. It's like certain language they can't say a ch, right? A lot of people don't have a ch sound. There are different sounds in different languages that people have. We Ashkenazim don't have a guttural h, ha. Right, different people have a different sounds. Arabs don't have it, but that's one of the identifying. That's how you could tell. That's how you could tell. By the way, because sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes you can't even tell. You get into the cab, you're not even sure. Next thing you know, he's an Arab. And then sometimes it's not comfortable. So it's not. But that's one of the ways you could tell. My brother told me there was a guy living in Israel. And his mother-in-law came for a visit. So the mother-in-law said to him. She wants a private cab driver to take her up to Tzfas for the day, to go on a tour of Tzfas, but not an Arab. So his son-in-law calls his friend Musa, the Arab. He says, Musa, do me a favor, it's cheaper. He says, Musa, do me a favor, take my mother-in-law up to Tzfas for the day, but do me a favor, put on a yarmulke, so she won't know the Arab. So he said, okay. So Musa shows up with his yarmulke, and he takes the mother-in-law. True story. He takes the mother-in-law in the car. They go up to Tzfas, and then finally they come back. And finally the guy says to his mother-in-law, he says, "Ma, how was the trip?" "Yeah, great." How did you like the cab driver?" She goes, "Oh, he was such a nice man, and a Talmud Chacham too." They know all the sprach. So there's always one in every Jewish institution. The non-Jew who knows all the halachas in the Jewish institution. I was once, that is unbelievable. I was once doing what do you call it? There was this event in Stamford, Connecticut for Gateways. You ever heard of Gateways organization? So there's a stand when you come in. They had some pizza for Friday afternoon when the guests were arriving, and he said there's a sign that says, there's a sign right by the pizza stand that says you don't have to wash because it's mizonos. So the sign says you don't have to wash. So there was a new worker there who was not Jewish, and he said to his buddy, he said, "What does that mean you don't have to wash?" So the guy said to him, "Well, when Jews eat bread, they have to wash. And if it's not bread, but it's mizonos, they don't have to wash." Then he says, "But the joke is, if you eat enough of this stuff, you do have to wash." And this is the non-Jew who knows the details of the halacha better than the Jews do. So there's always somebody, somebody lurking. In any event, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Ani aral sasai." Paro's not going to listen to me because I've got a speech impediment. I've got a speech impediment. How's Paro going to listen to me? What does that mean? One of the ideas here is, in the non-Jewish world, what gets you a position as a high-level politician? One of the most important things. Speech, oratory, right? The big orators all through history. You got to know how to speak in public. And even a politician who's not a good speaker, it costs him, especially in a debate. Especially if he comes across as completely mentally deficient in a debate. But in a makeup, you got to be an orator and a speaker. And Moshe, you're going to come in, and you're coming into Parshat, "Hi, you're Jewish people. Everybody follow me." And Paro like, "Oh, come on, buddy. It sounds like something out of Monty Python. You got to be kidding over here." So, number one. Number two, that's why they believe Moshe Rabbeinu, because he's able to say pakod pakadati, even though he's got a speech impediment. Even more, imagine you're Paro, and a guy's coming in and says, "Listen, you're in trouble. God's going to perform miracles. God's going to perform miracles over here." "Oh yeah? Why does he cure your speech impediment first?" How's Paro? You're going to convince Paro that God's almighty and all powerful. Yeah, but you can't talk. That's what you're going to convince Paro. That's not going to work. It's not going to work. That's what it means. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a deep idea. A very deep idea. You can't ask me any questions on this. I'm just telling you, either you hear it or you don't. It's like a tapestry. Either you appreciate it for what it is or you don't. What is the identifying feature of being a human being versus an animal? Speech. Why? Because speech is a sign of intelligence. Speech is a sign of intelligence. A child starts to learn how to talk. And slowly but surely, they put together sentences. First they learn words. First words my kids usually learn was pop. They like, "Pop, I want pop." And they point to the Coke. Pop. That's an easy word, and it's a very efficient word. It's a very important word for a child to know. Pop. The other one is I want. They start learning these important things in life. Some people never outgrow it, but they start learning these things. Okay. 3 years old, we start putting together sentences. At 5 years old, they could start actually making sense. You ever hear two 4-year-olds talking to each other? Listen to 4-year-olds talking to each other. "My father's big. We went to San Francisco. I have a bike. I hit my sister." They're having a conversation, but it has nothing to do. There's no continuity in the conversation. Each one is talking, but at least they're saying whole sentences. No continuity. It's almost like a husband and wife. There's no continuity. There's no communication whatsoever. Slowly but surely it develops. An animal doesn't speak. Animals communicate. However they communicate. There's no intelligence there. It's all instinct. By animals, it's instinct. A human being, speech is a sign of intelligence. Now, you have a neshama. a neshama in a human being. Animals don't have a neshama. Animals don't have a soul, a neshama. They have a living essence, but they don't have a neshama like a human being. What's the sign that you are a human being with neshama? The fact that you can speak, right? That's a sign that you're a human being with a neshama. Now, does your neshama want to be in your body? The Bishna in Pirkei Avos says, Al korchacha ata notzar, you were formed against your will. Your neshama was up there living a life, living in a spiritual bliss, and all of a sudden your neshama got the tap, you're going into the game. You're sitting on the bench drinking Gatorade and you're plenty happy, and all of a sudden your neshama gets the tap, you're going in. I really don't want to go in there, No, you're going in. And then it says, and you're born against your will. You're in a womb. You got free womb and board for 9 months. What could be better than that? And then you got to get born. And then you got to go to high school and take midterms. Listen, I don't want to do that. Right? That's the worst. So we did take the midterms right out of the teacher's briefcase. Went into a room, got the answers, they put it back. So what do you call isn't that called taking midterms? You did it too. Stop smiling. The what do you call it? I never did that. I was the guy in the room. There's always somebody who could take it. But at the end of the day, at the end, did you take a test? Sure. From the other school. so at the end of the day, your neshama doesn't want to be here. Your neshama is trapped in the body. They're opposites. This is physical, this is spiritual. The neshama doesn't want to be against your will. We're here against our will. Not in Ohr Somayach. Ohr Somayach, we're here because we want to be here. But we're in this world, our neshama is here. Okay. If the neshama is really in the clutches of the body, that means you're a really physical person, right? You're a physical person. You're dominated by physicality. Your neshama is, you feel trapped almost. If your neshama is less connected to the body, you're less dominated by the spiritual, by the physical, right? Your neshama is almost independent. If your neshama gets too independent, that's death. Maybe the person died and the neshama goes up. His body's complete. There's no neshama there. But if the neshama is, very, very loosely connected to the body, symbolically, he's a more spiritual person, right? What's the sign of a neshama that's loosely connected? It's not dominated by the physical. Well, if the neshama in the body is speech, so a neshama loosely connected may be a little problem with speech. Moshe Rabbeinu's speech impediment is a sign of his neshama being higher up than the body a little bit. It's not completely enclosed in his body. That speech impediment was just like a physical thing that he burnt his mouth on coals, symbolically is an indication of Moshe Rabbeinu's level. And if he's having trouble speaking, it's because the neshama isn't. It's like if you, I don't know, in the old days when you used to turn in on the, if you weren't on the exact wavelength of the radio, you get a little static, like that, because it's not quite. You're not quite closed in. Moshe Rabbeinu symbolically, that's the depth of it. The speech impediment is an indication of Moshe Rabbeinu's spiritual level, that his neshama isn't fully, whatever that means, it's not fully dominated by his body. That's the indication of that's what it means by a speech impediment. Okay, now something strange happens. Watch this. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe el Aaron. Hashem speaks to Moshe on Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayetzaver el bnei Yisrael al Paro melech Mitzrayim. Lahotzi es bnei Yisrael Mitzrayim. Now, if you guys have been following the parsha since the beginning, since last week, what happened last week in Parsha Shmos? If you listen to the Torah reading, Hashem talks to Moshe, Moshe talks back, Hashem talks to Moshe, Hashem comes to talk to the Jewish people, and the Jewish people talk back. A lot of talk. And you're waiting, come on, let's see some action over here. Let's see some blood. Let's see some fraud. Come on, let's get to some, let's see something. Let's see something happen. And then this week's parsha again. Now it starts again. We got a whole page over here, about 13 psukim. Finally, we're ready for some action. Look how it's Vaydaber Moshe lifnei Hashem lemor. Hein b'nei Yisrael lo shomo elai v'eich yetzi Paro v'anir al. So how's Paro going to listen? So what does Hashem do? Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayedaber Hashem al Moshe ve'el Aaron. Hashem speaks to Moshe Aaron. Vayetzavem el bnei Yisrael ve'el Paro melech Mitzrayim. He says, go to the Jewish people and to Paro, lehotzi es bnei Yisrael mitzrayim, to take the Jewish people out. What should follow now? They march in and they say to Paro, listen, if you expect to survive this, and Paro says no, and then we're going to see some punching and some blah. And what happens now? We take a break for station identification. Comes along the Torah and says, okay, Eile Rashi Beis Avosam. Here is the lineage of the Jewish people, and now there's a trace of people. I mean, you didn't know this already. It's like that. Doesn't ever happen to you? You're ready just when the action's going to start. All of a sudden, a commercial. Right? Then they come back, and it's still, no, come on already. You know, let's go. And you're, let's go. And all of a sudden, there's a break over here. And look what it says. It traces the tribe of Ruvain. Then it traces the tribe of Shimon. Then it finally gets to the tribe of Levi. Goes all the way through the lineage genealogy over here, till it finally gets to who Moshe and Aaron are. Their father is Amram, the mother is Yocheved, who they married. And finally, another page later, he sends them to Paro. What's going on here? We need now to tell us who Moshe and Aaron are, but weren't you paying attention all along? What's happening? Anybody got an idea? Why is the Torah doing this now? Why does the Torah have to tell me this now? I could have, we could have. Why? Anybody got an idea? No idea. What's that? To give them their status? I mean, we know their status. That is pretty clear. We know who they are. So it's interesting. The Rav Hirsch, he says like this: you're about to see. We are now, from this point on, we're going to go into some amazing stuff. You're going to get 10 plagues, and there's going to be a splitting of the sea, and there's going to be manna from heaven, and there's going to be a revelation at Sinai. Yeah, all sorts of neat stuff is going to be happening. And it's very easy to then ascribe some sort of deity level to the people involved over here. The Torah wants us to know, before anything, you're about to see all sorts of stuff, guys. You know what? These are human beings born from human parents of flesh and blood. There's no immaculate conception over here, and there's no nonsense like this and nonsense like that. This is a Moshe and an Aaron who are born. Now, why? So why does it just get to that point? Why? It could have said one sentence. Amram married Yocheved, and they had 2 sons, Moshe, Aaron, and Moshe. Why do you have to start with, there's Ruvain, and there's Shimon, and the Torah wants to tell us, listen, we're looking for qualified people. Let's see. First, we start with the tribe of Ruvain. Anybody in the Ruvain, and we want to show you that in order to do this, you have to be a very highly qualified person. In the house of Ruvain, there was nobody who qualified. In the house of Shimon, there was no one who qualified. That's why we go through that. Then we get to the house of Levi. In the house of Levi, there was, but realize that they're human beings. And not only they're human beings, they're high-level human beings. You see, there's often when you think of prophecy or you think of spirituality, sometimes you think of people who have hallucinations, and they're either drug addicts or they're some sort of sick, mentally sick or physically sick people. The Torah wants to tell you, you know that a prophet had to be a healthy person? And a prophet had to be, people think it's limited to people who are social losers or societal losers. No, religion is the realm of very healthy people. Are there unhealthy people in the religious world? Yeah, but there are also unhealthy people in all sorts of places. But it's not limited to a bunch of nutcases who are having hallucinations. The Torah wants to tell you, Jewish prophets were very healthy people. Not only they were healthy, they were select. No one from Reuven, no one from Shimon. Only once we get to Levi, we get to Moshe. Yeah.
I think this is true, but I read that the Kohen Gadol, when he went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the room was filled with smoke, and that was like psychedelics.
I don't know of any psychedelics in the I don't know. You always got to be careful. Who was the source? Was the source? No, I don't mean to say the source. I mean, you have to ask yourself: is this somebody qualified? Does he know what he's talking about? Does he have a source? I don't know if psychedelics. I don't even know what psychedelics are. It doesn't say. It says there was ketores. The ketores, they burnt the ketores in the base of Yeshiva. But anytime everybody says all sorts of things. When it comes to Torah, people think everybody's entitled to just throw out opinions in Torah. Torah is a serious study that needs expertise, like anything else. Everybody else projects their idea. The same guy, I don't know who the guy is. I don't know any of these people. Same guy wouldn't project his expertise on building a bridge that he himself had to cross. And he would get an expert to build the bridge before he crossed the bridge. He would go build the bridge because he thinks he knows a little bit about it, and he also wouldn't take medication without knowing what he's doing. People, everybody has something to say about Torah. A person has to know. You have to be responsible before you say that. Does it say, do you have a source anywhere in Shas or Poskim that says it was psychedelics? Is there any source that says it?
No, just
there is no source that says it.
The plants used matched up with
whatever. Well, we know that it's called incense. It doesn't say anywhere that it's psychedelics.
it was the same plants used.
And maybe it was, and maybe it wasn't. But we don't have any source in Torah that says that it's psychedelics. Torah is not a free-for-all where everybody gets to just say what they want about Torah. Do we have a source in the Torah that says it's psychedelics? I don't even know what psychedelics is. Psychedelics sounds pretty interesting. You know, whatever psychedelics are. But it's not a free-for-all. People look at it. Everybody has something. I don't mean you. I mean, everybody says, oh, I think this is the same plant. And does he know for a fact it's the same plant? He's got Hebrew words describing the incense. Does he know what those Hebrew words are for sure? Again, I don't know the person. I don't care who the person is. I'm just saying in general, it's got to be authoritative. Torah is not a free-for-all. It's like making chont. You wouldn't eat chont if an amateur made the chont. I only want chont from professionals, right? Because then it'll be psychedelic. Okay, now that's why it traces them. Okay, now take a look back for 1 second. I want to show you something very interesting here, which also affects us. Look on page 320 when it talks about the names of the sons of Levi. What's in a name? So it says Vaeira Shmos b'nei Levi. 3 lines from the bottom. These are the names of the sons of Levi l'toldosam. Gershon, Ukehos, Umerori. These are the sons of Levi. And then it's going to start tracing how you got to Amram from the sons of Kehas. But Levi himself has 3 sons. And there's an interesting life lesson here because the tribe of Levi, they were exempted from doing the hard labor in Mitzrayim. They were the priests. They were exempted from doing the labor. They were not included in the Jewish workforce. One of the reasons Moshe Rabbeinu, if you remember, Yosef HaTzadik released the priests of Egypt from paying taxes. And the Levium, they got a clergy exemption. If you ever have, in America, if you have a clergy sticker on your car, you can basically park wherever you want and you get a clergy discount. If you're clergy, there are different rules for clergy. So this tribe of Levi is not involved in the hard labor. On the other hand, look what he names his son. The first name is Gershon. What's a ger? Ger means he's a stranger in a strange land. Kehos. Kehos means to be blunted, that they're being blunted, they're being suffering from the labor. Umerori is bitterness. Mar means bitter. That means the commentaries say that's what's Levi naming his sons these names for. In life, if you're try to participate, try to empathize is one word, but to what's the better word, to somehow participate in somebody else's. For example, you've heard of Rabbi Yitzchak Kaladetsky. Rabbi Yitzchak Kaladetsky is Rav Chaim Kanievsky's son-in-law. So he's one of the biggest rabbanim today. People flood him and his wife for brachas and advice and everything else. Since the beginning of the war in Gaza, Rabbi Yitzchak Kaladetsky, at the beginning, the first few months, he didn't sleep on a bed at all. He slept on the floor. That means to try to actively empathize with the soldiers at the front. I have a friend who, since the beginning of the war, has not slept with a pillow on his bed. If the guys are sleeping in tanks, he's not going to sleep with a pillow on his bed. Try to make an association with them. There are actually commentaries that say that if you could put yourself into that level of discomfort, it'll take away some of the discomfort from them. Okay, there's a limit. Rabbi Kolodetsky eventually got sick and he has to sleep in a bed, so he sleeps on a bed off the floor but without a mattress. Just to make what's the word I'm looking for? A connection with those people. Levi and Mitzrayim. Okay, they're not forcing us to work, but at least I want to be able to try to feel a little bit. What empathize is one word. There's another. To empathize, actively empathize with them. You should know. No one should ever go. When you comfort a mourner at a Shiva house, many people have been sitting Shiva. Somebody comes in, people say this or people listen. I mean, it's all good. Then somebody comes in and he hears a story and he's so broken up, he starts crying. He cries along with the mourners. Many mourners will tell you that was the most efficient, the most efficient, comfort that they got was somebody else was crying. Why? It shows that somebody is feeling our pain. Somebody else is feeling our pain. They're not just writing it off. They're feeling our pain. We're supposed to feel that pain, make the association with them. That's why it says on Tisha B'Av, a person's supposed to fast on Tisha B'Av. A person says, listen, I'll let everybody else fast. I'm not fasting. I don't do fasting. So the Gemara says a person who does not share in the communal suffering, he will not share in the communal redemption. He will not share in the communal. Well, you took yourself out of the community. Nobody likes it. Nobody enjoys it. But that's what we have to do. So Levi purposely names his sons names that will have a connection to what the Jewish people are going through, even though he physically is not going through it. That's a person that has to learn that we have to empathize, that there are to associate ourselves with what's going on around us. Okay, now take a look at. Where is it? Yeah, Pasuk Yud Gimel. You want to be a leader of the Jewish people? Anybody want to be a leader in the Jewish people? So take a look at Rashi at Pasuk Yud Gimel. Sorry, I kind of confused you in the order over here. Back on 320, Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'al Aaron v'yetzavim el bnei Yisrael. So take a look at Rashi. It's left column. Left column about 8 lines from the top. Vayetzavim el bnei Yisrael commands the Moshe and Aaron to go get the Jewish people. Says Rashi. Everybody see that? Tzivam alehem. He commanded them regarding the Jewish people. Lehanhigam benachas, to guide them gently. Guide the Jewish people gently. V'lisbol osam, and to bear them. To bear the Jewish people. You want to be a rabbi of a shul? Become a rabbi of a shul. Well, you got to bear the people. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got something to say to the rabbi. But it's much more than that. To bear the Jewish people means, these Rabbanim, Reb Chaim Kanievsky and the Stipler, do you know how many heartbreaking stories they heard in a day? People coming to them with, this one's ill, and this one's a widow and an orphan, and somebody doesn't have parnasa, and somebody needs a shidduch. And they're hearing it day after day after day after day. And the Stipler was hard of hearing. So the Stipler, you had to write down what you wanted on a piece of paper. So the Stipler, Reb Chaim Kanievsky's father, people would write something down. So he once had these notes accumulated on the table. And one of his family members walked into the room and started taking a look at at the notes. The Stipler said, don't read those. You have to be hard as steel to read those. Because you're hearing so many troubles from people over and over and over and over. A person has to, it does something to you. It does something. You're hearing people crying. Some woman is crying her eyes out because she's got this problem, that problem. Wait, it doesn't just bounce off of us. The Gedolei Yisrael have the ability to bear the Jewish people. It takes a lot to bear the Jewish people. You got to carry. You got to have a tremendous. And not only that, they have the ability to know how to turn it on and turn it off. At the moment that they hear it, they actually hear the pain. They feel the pain, but they have the ability to then switch off as soon as the next person comes in because it's a different issue, and then go back to their learning. It's a very difficult thing. It's a very difficult thing, but it takes something out of you. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem is saying to Moshe Rabbeinu and to Aaron. He said, listen, you're going to take over the Jewish people. This is not going to be an easy task. All right, we'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll start with the real pain.